Hey, everybody. We are on the Mission Command podcast. We are going to have a conversation today about some trends that are happening that can cause you to make more money depending on what you're doing. All right. And I don't have any guests right yet, but when I do, I'll bring them on. But in the meantime, we're going to talk about something. Um, so there's all these cycles in life, right? And depending on where you're at, depends on who's going to get picked up and who's not. And you can make a quick adjustment and catch that wave, catch it coming up. And speaking of wave, something that happened to me, the market turned down. I went and back to my Navy SEAL roots and did a stint as an anti-piracy security agent in the Indian Ocean back in 2011. And I was on this container ship, and the captain of the ship, so it's late at night, we're just cruising in the wide open ocean. And me and the captain of the ship started talking. I told him my background was in real estate and mortgages and then financial services. And he told me that he was about ready to retire. And what he had done, he was making good money as a captain of, on these ships. He had some investor partners. They bought up a whole bunch of motels and hotels along the I-75 corridor in Florida, and they converted them to senior housing and senior assisted living facilities. Okay, so this is what I just talking to my fiance, who's got a background in psychology, and we were talking about, how when you hear something, see something, read something, experience something, it goes in that gray matter Rolodex in your brain. If there's something in there already that it can connect with, you'll have these epiphanies. If it doesn't, it just keeps floating around there until you hear something, see something, read something, experience something that bang, it connects, and that's when you have those epiphanies. Okay. And recently I'm like, I need to do some marketing. So I get on my Marbleism AI and ask it to find some events for me. And they found two. And one was Friday, one was Saturday, and one was a community fair at the Albridge. And I'm all excited, thinking it's going to be community. There's going to be parents with kids, right? And so I go, and it was a senior assisted living facility for dementia and Alzheimer's patients. And I got there early, and so I went to go lunch. I went to the Black Walnut down the road, sat on the patio, and this couple and this older gentleman come out to the patio, and I'm thinking it's a guy taking his dad to lunch. Well, it was a real estate agent and his wife taking their new client to lunch. They listed this guy's house, and he was hard of hearing, so he spoke really loud, and I could hear everything they were saying. And he was saying that his wife had passed and his kids were grown, and the house needed a lot of work, and he didn't want to be working on the house. He wanted someone to take care of him. And then I go to the community fair, and I meet them. It's all hospice nurses and in-home care providers, a bunch of women. and one of them, I'm actually, I helped her, with her asset allocation for her 401k. We're gonna, she's got a lot of talent that she could do to maybe make a little more money. She needs a little bit more money to hit her goal, right? To be able to have a decent retirement. She just needs to, get a little more cash flow coming in. All right. And then the next day, the next event was the Houston Investor and Builder meeting, their monthly meeting. And there was these two guys, both Asian, and one was he converted apartments to condos, and he was complaining because nobody was buying the condos. And the other one had him and his investor partners bought a hotel, and because of COVID, they couldn't, nobody was staying at the hotel, so they ended up going bankrupt. And I'm thinking, you know what? They're missing the boat. If they would have converted, oh, this is awesome. If they would have converted the those apartments to senior assisted living facilities or senior housing, or the hotel to senior assisted living facility, all right, they would have never had a vacancy. I pulled up the statistics. Okay. The oldest baby boomers are turning 80 by the year 2020, by next year. And by the year 2020 or 30, every baby boomer will be at least 65 years old. Okay. That doesn't mean there's 70 million people that are going to suddenly move into assisted living. Okay. But there's approximately 67 million baby boomers remaining in the U.S. population. About 20% of them, it's about 20% of the national population. Okay. The statistics, about 18% of those are going to be moving into assisted living facilities. Okay. Doesn't sound like a lot, but check this out. The median assisted living cost is approximately $6,200 per month, or about $74,000 a year. And the demand is rising. So everything's supply and demand. Okay. The 90.1% overall senior housing occupancy in the second quarter of 2026 across 99 markets. Okay. 88.6% occupancy for the majority of assisted living properties. Fewer than 24,000 senior housing units under construction, the lowest since 2012. 57 out of 99 tracked markets exceed 90% occupancy. Okay. I used to be in commercial lending. Even if you had 100% occupancy, they only let you consider 75% of the revenue occupancy, rents, because they're just, it's a fudge factor for not having occupancy. Okay. Vacancies. So that market is a sweet spot for commercial lending. I got somebody I invited on here, hope he comes on. I'll at least send in this video. That's a sweet spot for commercial lending. And so with that said, if I had a tendency of connecting with people in the construction business, I grew up in that industry. My stepdad was a cement mason by trade. He was a builder in the CBs. We were always around those kind of people. A lot of guys that are in the SEAL teams came from that background. Actually, the SEAL teams were started by CBs. How about that? So that kind of mentality, that kind of person. And then, my hobby was shooting. When I'd go to the shooting range, everybody at the range was either a general contractor or a subcontractor or electrician or civil engineer or land surveyor. Okay, somebody in that field. Their hobby, they like shooting too, right? That they go to the range too. So that's why I got so much construction business. They go to work, they think the way I think, they talk the way I talk, they like the things I like. Okay. The So there's a significant increase in demand for these facilities, and there's a deficit far as licensed assisted living facilities and licensed assisted, assisted living beds and licensed caregivers. There's a vacuum. There's not enough to go around to meet this demand. Now, the we're going over the statistics, looking at the cost. So median cost across the United States is $6,200 a month or $74,000 a year. Okay, now in Houston, it's a lot lower. It's between $3,500 and $5,500 a month, depending on the community and care level. But that's going to be going up. That's all supply and demand. All right, that's going to be increasing. So that's what we're looking at in this opportunity. So for what I do, if somebody isn't making enough money to cover their monthly expenses, if they're having a challenge making enough, there's not a lot I can do for them. They have to have discretionary. They have to have more money than they're spending, okay, that I can help them save. Okay, it's really difficult to get somebody who's already has a habit of eating out all the time, or going to the movies, or the spending their money. Then it's hard to get them to stop spending that money once they start spending it. Okay, but if I can help them make more money before they start figuring out how to spend it, save it for their future, it's a lot easier to do. Okay, so somebody coming right out of trade school, they 22-year-old guy that's HVAC tech or automotive mechanic or electrician, they're making 60 grand a year. They got an apartment, they got a car, they got food in the refrigerator, they got their cell phone, they got cable. Okay, it's easy to show them, hey, and they got money left over, $650 a month. By the time they're 57, they're a millionaire. Okay, they don't have to work anymore if they don't want to. Okay, it's easier. But if they're older and they don't have that time on their side, they got to have more money. Okay, so I do things like, there's certain things, certain industries that I already know, I already have the hack for, right? In the beauty industry, I was on the Christian Entrepreneur call yesterday. They had two of them, a mastermind and or boardroom, whatever, and they had a lady that's from the beauty industry, and she has these different things that they can do to add more services, and so they can make more money. And I'm like, oh yeah, need to be talking to her. Okay, there's one thing that I know of, and that's wig making. Okay, the health insurance companies pay for the prosthetic wigs for women going through chemo and radiation or have alopecia, and they pay like clockwork, and that's on the low end, $800 a month. I had a girlfriend that she had like 13 of those clients, right? I was worried about her during COVID, and she's like, oh no, I made more money. I got wig orders online, and watched Netflix and put my wig together. Didn't have to listen to anybody while telling me all their gossip and drama. And okay, so right away, bam, they can significantly increase their cash flow in that industry. Automotive mechanic becoming a welder. Okay, now they can get work for a logistics company and maintain not only the engines of the semi tractor trailers, but the repair the trailers and all that. They get paid for welding, then they get paid for fixing the engines, right? Then there's welders. Welder in here in Houston. There's one of three underwater welding schools in the country, and they they make them get the Part 107 license to operate the underwater drones, but that's the same license to operate an aerial drone. They could get a DJI Mini or a Phantom, secondhand, $300, right? It's like $150 to get that license, and now they can get a contract to maintain a pipeline or water towers or cell towers. With Elon Musk and his Skynet, there's less opportunity for the cell towers, but there used to be, right? But they can, a radio tower, right? They can put the drone up. Oh, using drones for aircraft inspections, right? Whatever. They find the damage, get their cutting torch and their welder out and fix it. Okay. These are, they get paid for both. Okay. In that drone industry, there's all kinds of things. There's real estate photography, there's precision ag applications, there's geospatial applications, there's LiDAR and photogrammetry applications. It's the same license. You just have different sensors on your drone. It's the same skill, right? And a lot of times it's just having the right software that takes that data, whether it's a multispectral or photogrammetry, and it takes it and puts together a 3D mosaic and bam, puts the header on it and for your company and electronically sends it to the client, right? You get your license, you get that Part 107 license, and you register what type of drone you're flying, what sensors you're flying, what other jobs you've done, right? People call you. It's like Market Shoot. People call you up, giving you jobs. Constructions, surveillance. So these project managers will hire people for the drone to fly around their construction site every day to check the progress, see what's going up, right? That's an industry, that's a business. Okay, so there's all these different things. So when you start seeing, like I said, it's HVAC tech getting certified to do home inspections for real estate transactions. They got to have them, right? Got to know the HVAC. That's why my son got into the HVAC business. He was going to do the real estate inspection stuff, and the test when it came to the HVAC stuff was difficult. So he got a job in that industry and learned that industry. Okay, now he can get that license and do that, and on the weekends and on part time, significantly increases income. Electricians. I had a guy in Arkansas that was setting up these wealthy people with in-home entertainment centers, and then I turned him on to the digital signage, the LED video wall. So now it's a big old video wall, like an in-home theater, right? In their homes, LED. Okay, and then there's things like the signage, the LED signage. They can sell ads on those signs, right? And just every 15 seconds they're flipping an ad, right? That sign's a moneymaker. Isn't that wild? Okay, and so these are kind of things that people in these industries can augment their income. Okay, well, it's that little shift, that little pivot. It's like you're hitting the wall, and you take a step to the left or right and walk through the door. These contractors, there was a guy on the Christian Entrepreneur call. He does drywall in New York and New Jersey. Okay, these converting these, tracking down apartment complexes that are kind of run down. Go to find the owners. Hey, you ever think about converting this to the senior assisted living? Right? These their rents are subsidized. There's going to be a line of people waiting to get in. Right? You're never going to have any vacancies. Right? And now you're converting those. You're putting in the rails and the wheelchair ramps and extra wide doors. That's what you're going to do. Okay. And there's going to be more work than you can handle. Okay. It's just, I was talking to somebody, older gentleman. He's like 80 years old. He's an architect, and I wanted to have him on today. But he's like that. He's an architect for these senior assisted living facilities. And he's like, "Oh, dude, you are on the right track." And he's like, really, he had health issues. He was 80 years old, and 80 years old, and he's retired. He's just now retiring, right, because of health issues. I mean, I guess he liked what he did. It took me a little bit to find somebody. I was looking for somebody to come on to be a guest today, and discuss this topic. But I've got enough experience. Think about this. In Houston's on the low end, right? $3,500 to $5,500 a month to move into a senior assisted living facility. Okay. Now you're going to pay rent anyways, or a mortgage. A lot of times what happens is people, like this older gentleman I met at the Black Walnut, his house is paid for. So they sell that house and that put that money into some kind of annuity, all right, that's going to keep pulling off the interest, and the interest is going to pay for their living. Okay. But everything's supply and demand. Now, is the market going to tank when all these seniors start leaving their homes and bringing the prices down and there's not as much? I don't know. Okay. There's a lot of artificial forces that are keeping those real estate values up. The banks want that to happen because they don't want to be, they want to own those assets, they all have ownership interest in those assets because they're holding the mortgage, right? And when the property values go below the debt, people will walk away. That's what happened in 2008, right? And there was, what ended up happening there was the option arms, the 1% negam interest. The interest that didn't get paid was capitalized, was added to after 13 months, got added to the principal balance, and it became an interest only payment, which was causing their payment to go way up, and people walked away. Okay, walk away from their homes, and the banks didn't expect that, or did they? They may have, because a lot of them bought default insurance for those mortgages. So the banks not only got back the principal that they lent, but they also got 30 years interest back. They got their money back quicker, right? People aren't talking about that. That movie, what was it called? Where they talked about, it was all about the mortgage crash and the default swaps and bundling the subprime mortgages with the paper mortgages, and it all fell apart. What was the name of that movie? It'll come to me. Anyway, but here we are. We're seeing that this opportunity, especially for people in the construction business, the people that are doing the remodeling, or architects. There's a whole bunch of properties out there that maybe they're motels and hotels and apartment complexes that, instead of converting to condos, convert them to senior assisted living facilities, maintain ownership of them, and just get a different kind of client in there. Okay. And it's an opportunity, right? And then here I come. There's a couple things, right? The when you think about this, what do you have in place? What do you have? Do you have, a lot of these life insurance policies have, even the term policies allow, um, for catastrophic illness in a stroke, or something happens, you can pull up to 90% of the death benefit of your policy to cover your in-home care or your expenses. Okay, so this is something that the industry, in their crystal ball saw coming. Right, it's an opportunity. So these are the things that when I'm talking to people trying to title company reps. So this guy Ryan Lipsey, this is something. So that weekend, okay, after going to the community fair at the Awbridge and processing all my leads of hospice nurses and in-home care providers, I was on LinkedIn, saw a podcast by Brian Lipsey with Tycor Title in San Diego, talking exactly about the silver tsunami. That's the way I first heard the term. Then the next day, I'm at the San Diego or the Houston Builders and Investors meeting, and I'm seeing the challenges they're having. People aren't buying the condo conversions, and they aren't staying in the motels and hotels. Right? That's an easy fix. Okay, and it's going to meet a need, the demand for senior assisted living facilities. Okay, so it just all that kind of came together. That's getting this. Bam! I'm thinking of this the ship captain that him and his partners bought up all these motels and hotels along I-75 in Florida. This is back in 2011. He's telling me this. All right. And he had done this way before then. He had a crystal ball or something. So, well, I don't have anybody to banter with or carry this conversation further. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to end it now, but I'm going to put in the comments section of the video when I download this to YouTube. I'm going to put down in a link to my website and my Calendly link. If anybody wants to have a conversation about setting themselves up with a safety net for their retirement, including these the ability to leverage a death benefit in a life insurance policy to cover long-term care needs, and or if anybody's in the architect or engineering or construction field that's wants to talk more about the this opportunity of converting condos and motels and hotels to these senior assisted living facilities. Anybody who's in that world of being the in-home care providers, I got a whole list of them that I'm going to send this video to. Let's talk, okay? Because you know what? Your clients' heirs are my clients. The beneficiaries of them, when they, pass, do they have a living trust? Do they have enough protection, life insurance? They have, there's a big, I just did a trust with somebody. They have a house, it's free and clear. They have one son they have two sons, both of them, neither one of them own their own house. Okay, and I'm trying to help them get into a property because she's young enough that, we can get them in their own property, and instead of fighting over the equity in the house, because if one of them gets the house that's free and clear. And the other one, he's going to have to finance that property to pay the other one, pay the brother 50% of the equity in that house. Now he's got a mortgage. Okay. Be better if he got himself in his own place. All right. And then they sell her house and split the equity from it and then they can be in their own place. There's a program called NACA. Get 100% financing, no down payment, no closing costs. The rate is about a point better than the conforming interest rates. They'll even get you in a 4-unit. You can live in one and rent the other 3 out. That's covering your mortgage there, right? Now you're positive in your cash flow. I wish I'd done that when I first got out of the military and bought my first house. So there's a whole bunch of opportunity available. Okay, you just have to look out the right window, and I'm going to help people, see things out the correct window, right? It all depends on your perspective, and based on what this information goes in that gray matter Rolodex, okay, and it might already connect with something you already heard, seen, or done, or maybe in the future, it's going to connect with something that you're doing or you're working on, or that you need to focus on. All right. Well, that said, have a great Friday.